All right, mellow video time here. I see these periodically, and I don't know that I'm necessarily the authority you'd want to go to for some of this stuff, but I do get questions, and so I don't drink coffee and stuff, but I do drink water, so this is water with Axel. Anyway, the question came in like this, and it says, while I agree with you on the worthlessness of fiat, is it not worth working for fiat with the thought in mind that you're going to buy or accumulate more Bitcoin? Or, you could substitute Bitcoin with physical gold or with any other hard currency for that matter, land, whatever you wanted to do. Well, I would say this. So here's how I would answer this. There's a reason you can do that, right? But there's a reason why, for example, you have to buy dollars before you buy oil, right? Oil is traded in dollars, so therefore you have to buy dollars first, right? You have to buy USD in order to buy oil. And the reason that is because that gives the American politicians and the bankers, the bankers that run the politicians, from other countries, they then get to export. They get the privilege of exporting inflation that way. It's the fastest and most sure way to do that. That's why you have countries. This is why I'm immediately incredulous with lots of people, even on the right, or even people that are the Mises people. I'm actually pretty much at odds with them on this when they start quoting things in dollars. When they say, oh well, the lifestyle of Americans is $5,000 a month versus $60 a day in some other country, and it's like, or not $60, excuse me, like $3 a day kind of thing, and it's like, well, yeah, but that's priced in dollars, and then keep in mind their inflation rate is going to be different. Their purchasing power by percentage is going to be way different than someone who lives in the U.S., especially when everything is pushed out of sight in terms of price. So the idea that I posit to people is to try and get, if you're going to work for a company, or if you're going to work for anybody for that matter, whether it's a company or just another person, try to get them to pay you in something. It's different when you make them buy a hard currency and pay you. They run the risk of eating all the inflation, not you. That's the difference, and that's why I would tell you that's why you do stuff like that. That's it. Like I said, if it's good enough for the bankers that own the U.S. government, then it should be good enough for you, right? That's how you do this. That's how you win this game. It's sort of like Monopoly. Think of it like this: how do you win at Monopoly? I'm going to give you the surefire way to win at Monopoly that nobody will ever play Monopoly with you again if you know this. What you do is you roll the dice. You pick up 2 or 3 random properties. It doesn't make any difference what they are, 2 or 3 of them. And then once you've picked up your third one, just let everybody roll past you and just say no, keep skipping me. Who cares? You don't have to pass go. Just keep skipping you. And what'll happen is eventually someone sooner or later is going to want that property that you have, and then you could say no, it's not for sale. I'm just living here and everything. See, as long as you're not moving around the board. Right, you don't incur any rents, right? If in other words, you bought the property, you're living there. So, and there's nothing in the rules, to my knowledge, that says that you have to take your turn. You're not required to roll the dice. You can just say, no, I'm happy right here, man. You guys can keep playing. Eventually what'll happen is that other players will just keep playing, they'll accumulate. And then what happens is that eventually you'll be down to 1 or 2 people who will start offering you insane amounts of money for these properties. And you just keep telling them no. Or you sell maybe one of them, but you tell the first guy, hey, listen, I'll sell you this property, but if I ever land on any of your properties, not only do I not pay you rent, whatever the rent is due on that property, I don't care how many hotels are on it, you pay me the same amount of money that I would end up paying you. And also, if you ever draw a get out of jail free card, I get that card, right? That's the deal. Like you can cut all of these deals, right? And that's how you end up. That's how you win at Monopoly. It doesn't make any difference, who owns the board if you own them, right? So that's how no one will ever play with you if you use that strategy. They will because they know that you'll win every single time, because it doesn't matter, especially if you're down to the last guy who owns the entire board. You own him. He can't win. He has to. He exists only because you allow him to exist. That's the reality. Because if you just kept traveling around the board, right now, if you decide to travel around the board, you will eventually make him go broke, And then you will not only own all the money, you will also own the board and own him too. I mean, that's how that works. But enough about Israel. Anyway, so to answer that question, that's how you do this, okay? So I would, if you can get people to pay you in hard currency, it's always better, always better to get them to pay you, in a hard currency, and you don't eat the inflation, they eat the inflation. Fuck them. I mean, like that's just how it is. And by the way, that also ends slavery. Just so you know, that it ended like a motherfucker in this world. I will assure you of this. Yeah, boop. I know, you're a good bird. Okay, so next question was: are we at the end of the Ponzi scheme? I see a lot of TikTok videos lately documenting the hyperinflation that we're experiencing. Boomers are still blaming $5 coffees. It's hard to answer a question like this because I would argue we were at the end of the Ponzi scheme in 2008 when the idea came about that we're going to bail out a bunch of fucking bankers. The idea, and people didn't burn DC to the ground, right? There used to be, like Americans' balls have really dropped off. Let me put it this way. In the 80s, there were people who would be upset enough to go kill abortion doctors, right? And now, currently, in this world, we have people that are telling your children, your male children, to chop their cocks off and become girls, right? And no one is bringing that's an actual, like, it's not even a question of whether or not, is it a life, is it not a life? No, that's actual genocide, because some teacher is telling, or some counselor is telling your kids to mutilate themselves to the point where they can't pass on your genetics anymore. That is actual genocide, by the way. So I would argue that most of this stuff has already pretty much collapsed. We live in sort of the post-apocalyptic version of the world right now. The problem is that the costuming isn't as good. None of it. We're not dressed in leather. We don't have the shoulder pad on the left shoulder, and then and the sawed-off shotgun on our leg. We don't all drive cars that have giant superchargers sticking out of the hood. If we had all of that, if more of frankly, no one can afford that kind of cool stuff. You understand? The road warrior would have been considered extremely rich by the standards of the people of the time, if you understand the post-apocalyptic motif that the directors were going for. And the same would be said about Thunderdome. Those are great movies, by the way. If you haven't seen them, I recommend you watch them. In fact, Thunderdome is actually more relevant today than when it was made. It's how good that movie actually was. Mel Gibson he has a good eye for material. There's no question about that. So is this coming to an end? It's like, I would argue it's already at an end. It's just that look at the way the currency is going. Look at the way it's just that 50% of people they're okay with everything because they are doing better than other people, right? Okay, so there was a study that came out I saw this yesterday, and it said that 50% that they found, the question was, I'll give you the exact question. You are offered a job that pays $100,000 a year right out of the gate. Okay, doing whatever it is that you do, you are offered a job paid $100,000, but everybody else there at the company earns $200,000 a year. You earn $100,000 a year. Everybody else there, because for whatever reason, they earn $200,000 a year. Or you could take job B. Job B paid $50,000 a year, but everybody there made $25,000 a year, except you. You made $50,000 a year. They found that 50%, half of those polled, would take the $50,000 a year job. They would actually, to their detriment, make half the money that they could make, potentially, as long as they were making more money than somebody else, than everybody else, right? I would put that into the category of borderline mental illness. So 50% of people right now they're doing okay. They don't want anything changed. They're happy with the Ponzi scheme dying. They're happy with making, because for them it's going really well. For boomers it's going really well, isn't it? No, leave that alone. For boomers it's going really well. For, for lots of other people, it's going great. I mean, they're making lots of money. The insanely rich are becoming like super insanely rich, right? And it's just how it works. So I mean, the people, of course, that are getting wiped out in this order are Zoomers, Millennials, and Gen Xers. What the stragglers in Gen X? It's in that order. They're getting wiped out very quickly. Your Zoomers. First, because they don't have anywhere near the assets to keep up with the inflation, not even close. They don't have the assets, they don't have the training, they don't have nothing. They don't have anything really to keep up with what's going on. So I would argue that that's actually a major problem. But 50%, let's say, the top half of the economy, right? Remember, an economy is just people. That's all it is. It's all an economy is. It's just people engaged in commerce. The top half of that economy, as long as they're doing better than you, well, then they're perfectly happy with everything sucking, because it sucks for you, not for them, right? It's the opposite actually of what what the U.S. was actually founded on. The U.S. I mean, if you research the founders, most of the founders didn't die exactly rich. Most of the founders actually died, some of them owed millions of dollars when they died. They were more concerned about a country and their countrymen, and they were concerned about having the ideas of freedom, liberty, etc. They were concerned about that stuff. They weren't all 100% concerned with just trying to, get as much as they can as much as they get and hide the can, right? They weren't trying to do that. Not all of them anyway. And John Hancock, of course. I mean, if you look him up, famously, not only did he sign the biggest signature, but that was the equivalent of him giving. He was the Elon Musk of his day, if you want to think of him in those terms. He was extremely rich, and he made a lot of money doing what he was doing. He effectively was willing to give that all up in order to have a country that in order to actually have real wealth, which comes from your country, your community, etc. And I didn't, and I said community, not communism. Big difference. So it's my long way of answering that question. But do I think it's coming to an end? I would say that I think that it's come to an end, and the question is that which way is the last lingering bits of the tower in the center going to fall? So, last question was I have a question about. I'm going to paraphrase this because this goes on at some length. This stuff. I have a question about immigration. The illegal immigrants. How are they making the rent go so high? Okay, let me just explain this. This is just supply and demand. All right, when you have, when you have a huge amount of demand, prices end up going up. This is just the market, right? Now, it's a market that everybody understands, except in the labor market. For whatever reason, in the labor market, nobody understands that. They just like, oh no, there's this huge demand for labor, but the wages keep going flat, and they keep going down. So in every market except the labor market, because labor is, they need slaves. Okay, there's no other way of explaining this. Okay, like all of these large corporations, they need slaves. That's why their wages continue to stay flat or decline. Okay, that's just reality. Their business models depend upon that. They depend upon ever decreasing wages. This is 35 years and actually 36 years now in business, telling you straight up that is exactly how most of these companies operate. I deal with these companies. I deal with big companies. I deal with small companies, and I deal with it on the owner side. Okay, the B2B relationship, and I can tell you most of these companies. They would go completely tits up if they actually had to deal with an actual labor market wherein wages were increasing. None of them could survive. Bonds would not get paid. The shareholders would lose shit tons of money, which, God forbid we have that happen. All of these things. Not to get too far afield, but this is all affected. Yes, I know that's a funny bird. All of these things are affected. So what happens is that with immigration, okay. You're just putting more people into the marketplace. That's all you're doing. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not even bringing up the culture war. I'm not even bringing that up. I'm just talking about just sheer numbers of people. When you import 30 to 50 million illegals and you shove them into a country that doesn't have the infrastructure to support that. In the meantime, you've got a whole bunch of your millennials and Zoomers that you're constantly making fun of to get out of the house. Move out of your parents' fucking basement and go do your own thing, and you're telling them to do that in a market that actually is being flooded, right? Okay, and like I said, we've been over this before. You can flood any market, and you're all they're doing is flooding the market with people to prop all these prices up. Keep in mind how many people, they think of how many gurus went to these airport Marriott seminars, or the people that still go on YouTube. And they'll watch these gurus, these real estate gurus, say, no, buy rental properties and just milk everybody, just destroy the next generation by just raising the rents to the point of insanity. And what happens is that that's what's going on. And these people believe this shit because they believe they're entitled to a profit. You're not entitled to a profit. You're entitled. Again, I say this is a businessman talking. You're not entitled to a profit. You're entitled to earn a profit. And this you earn a profit by providing traditionally a better product at a better price than what your competitor is offering, not by just constantly raising the prices so that you can be profitable, and then changing the laws so that way more and more houses can't be built, and having proxies like Bill Gates and other shills out there buy up all this land and then sit on it and do nothing. Right? Which, I mean, by the way, the founders of this country would never have allowed. They would never have allowed that. First of all, you were supposed to be an American that owned land in your own country. You weren't supposed to, not foreign corporations, and certainly not corporate entities claiming that they own everything. They would never have allowed that. They would have hanged all those people. And it still should happen today. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to pull any punches on this. I mean, most of these people should be going to the fucking gallows for what they're doing, because what they're doing is actually treason. By forcing people to live in these shitty cities that nobody wants to live in. Just like that nonsense that Trump was talking about. Let's build 10 cities to nowhere and have flying cars. Like, dude, everybody I know is trying to get the hell out of cities. Everybody's trying to get the fuck out of the cities. They're trying to get away from all this. They look at this and go, dude, there's no fixing this. I want out. And so it's like, yeah, that's reality. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't matter what it doesn't matter who you are. People are trying to do that. They're trying to get away from that. I hope these questions, I answered these 3 questions. If you have any other questions from, ask somebody who's on the ground doing this shit. I don't get any money for this. I don't want your money. I know most people don't have any money, so I'm just answering these questions best I can. Looks like those were the 3 questions that I had gotten. So we'll see you next time.